There's an art to the adult slumber party, and no, I'm not talking about the sexual kind, although those also require a unique set of talents. I'm referring to having some friends over for a night of being basic, frozen margaritas, coyote ugly, inhaling every last crumb of a charcuterie plate, and gossiping until the sun comes up. The gossip part is where my skills really shine. I've been doing that ever since I was a closeted kid in Ohio, embracing the metaphorical tea with whoever was willing to spill it at my local pajama party. It wasn't always easy to find other kids my age who wanted to chat about living, laughing, and loving in the 90s, but fortunately, there were moms for that, and there's no one better than a mom. When I was 10 and under, slumber parties meant a movie, some pizza, me wrapped in a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle sleeping bag by 9 p.m., and then waking up early to talk to my friend's mother before any of the other kids got up. Breakfast with the woman of the household was my favorite part of the experience. This all usually happened at my best friend Bobby's house, an only child who always had the best snacks. His mom, Deborah, would sit me down in the nook and vent to me about her husband, Rick, and I loved the adultness of it. She didn't look at me like I was a kid. She treated me like the therapist she should have paid good money for. By the time we sat together, Deb often looked defeated, like she needed 5 more minutes of sleep and 2 fewer Valiums to properly get ready for her day, but I was able to perk her up just by listening. I always assumed AMs were most difficult for her since she was coming from spending hours alone in bed with her nightmare husband. Deb would pour me a glass of OJ and tell me about Rick working late and not caring about her thriving herb garden, while I would wonder how anyone could not be enamored by this amazing woman. She would make her coffee strong like an ox as I sat beside her with my frosted strawberry Pop-Tart, ready to listen to her marital problems. I didn't have all the answers, but I would remind her that she was strong like an ox, just like her coffee. And then, like clockwork, I would spot a lone tear cascading down her cheek before Rick interrupted our chat with some outdated demand like that she needs to make him breakfast. "Make your own fucking breakfast, Rick," I wanted to say. If I could turn back time, I would take a wrecking ball to the patriarchy of that household, but alas, there is no time-traveling DeLorean for me to hop into yet. As adolescence hit, the sleepovers started to get weirder and weirder. The tween years are a strange time for kids, with everyone growing up at different rates and having various degrees of body odor, hair, and hormones. When I was 12, I still wanted to do the little kid things like play with Mighty Morphin Power Ranger action figures, while the other kids wanted to call up girls from our class and playfully flirt. Why would I want to talk to girls when there were grown moms who were so wise nearby? It was 6th grade, and I was not a boy, not yet a man. Not everyone is on the same body-changing schedule in the 6th grade, but I remember a thin, dark mustache sprouted within a week that fall, and my voice would fluctuate between Kristen Chenoweth on helium and B. Arthur with a cold. Hormones were flooding through my body, and blood traveled to my bottom half like a cascading waterfall anytime I saw Brendan Fraser on the George of the Jungle movie poster, or walked down the underwear aisle at my local Kmart, but it wasn't like I was out to anyone. Speaking of undies, 12 is when I switched from traditional underwear to boxers. I'll never forget receiving my first pair, which felt like a rite of passage into adulthood. Mom wrapped them up as a birthday gift alongside an art kit, and when I opened them in front of my other family members, I was so embarrassed. I started blushing when I saw that they were boxers, quickly moving on to the next gift. From my reaction, you would have thought she gave me a box of dildos, but it was just one pair of cotton underwear adorned with Taz from Looney Tunes. My birthday is in October, and it would be months before I would gather the strength to actually wear those boxers. Each day I would set them out on the bed, look at them for a moment, and then go back to my Hanes tighty-whities I was used to. That winter, I finally put them on, and a whole new world opened, a world where I was unrestrained and running free, like Mariah Carey in the Butterfly music video, or Nicole Kidman after she signed her divorce papers. Those boxers were the catalyst for me discovering my body for the very first time. It wasn't just me, everyone is trying to figure out their bodies around that age, and that causes some very awkward group slumbers. Bobby had most of the boys from our class over one night in the spring of 6th grade, well after I had started embracing my boxers and puberty. I had planned to transfer to public school the following year, so this was one of the last group events with my Catholic school buddies. Since there were so many of us, Deb and Rick let us all sleep in their fancy basement. I felt like Richie Rich staying there because their basement had carpeting and a big screen television, while the basement I grew up in had a concrete floor, molded wood from a flood that was never properly dealt with, and my dad's old train set from the 1960s that was also covered in probably dangerous, possibly deadly mold. Bobby's house was suburbia goals. The girls from our class were all having their own sleepover, so we spent most of the early evening calling them on Bobby's second phone line. I hate to keep pointing out comparisons, but my family never, ever had a second phone line. Even when we eventually got the internet, we would inevitably get kicked off our Netscape navigator every time Aunt Joanne called to discuss Erica Kane's latest All My Children antics with my mom. When Napster came along, it would take weeks to download Lady Marmalade because the internet kept getting cut out. So I was always envious of anyone with an extra phone line that allowed them to listen to more than just Maya's verse.